Okay, so this is a tutorial for you guys to know how to render from After Effects what you have achieved in Maya, which is all this set of images, a number from 0 to 500, whatever. So basically, this is After Effects. It's a program that you can call it, or you can like associate it with Photoshop, but for animation. So it's pretty much Photoshop for videos, not for animation. So let's see how it works. Pretty much several windows. I mean, you'll get to that once you start working with it. And let's just go straight forward. I mean, we're going to go here now. You have two windows here. You just make sure that here's where you're going to render in render queue, and here's where you're going to have your working space with the timeline and the different layers here. So it's basically layers and time at the same time. So that's pretty much the difference with Photoshop. Here you're going to have the different images or set of images that you're going to work with, and here you're going to see the final result and the different parts of the video. Okay, this is After Effects. So you open it up and you just go to File, Import File, not multiple files, and I have this set of images which I did in Maya as a small animation with a box. Very simple, black and white, and moving camera, and moving box, and moving light. So what you do is select the first one, the 001, and now here's a good moment to explain the idea of the padding. So you can see I said padding 3, I think, so that's why we have two zeros in front, and that's why they're all exactly in a perfect order. Even the 100, which is my last one, it's the last one. If the padding was 2, this one would have jumped before and would have been a mess. Okay, so we select the first one, and here we have to make sure that IFF sequence is turned on, is checked, and we say open. And here, depending on what kind of a background, since it's a TIFF image, the background is you can use the alpha, but normally you will use ignore if you have a desired background that you want. You say OK. So immediately this jumps here, and we have to go to this window, the one in the left, to drag, press and drag down to here, and you will see the result. This window you can obviously pretty much fit the screen, whatever you can make, like you can see how it goes. Now this is going to be your layer. This is the layer in time, so that little piece that shows up, and this is the guy that pretty much measures where you are in the film. As you can see, it's connecting all the images together, shaping a film or animation. Now things you need to know, the very basic, it's composition settings. And here is pretty much your size, width and height, the rate 30, and the duration. So now the duration, as you see in the timeline, is like 100 frames, which fits good to my 100 frames. But I wanted to explain what happens if I press here like 5 minutes. And if I say OK, automatically this bar in the top, which is used to scale the time, as you can see, allows me to see the maximum. So you can see it's 5 frames, and so this is the maximum settings for time length for this animation. So things to navigate around. I mean, you can see I can select this guy and move it. This is pretty much the group of images set together. So you can move these guys and press shift so it snaps specific points. Okay. We can scale the time just to see it in different ways if you want to work in a specific area of the animation, or we can also scale it down here. As you can see, it's pretty much the same way. We can move this guy to see specific areas, etc., etc. Now we can add layers. Let's say you want another, like a flat sphere moving around. You can create a layer very easily, put it here, and put it on top of this layer. Will be as in Photoshop, like on top of this as a layer. So as you can see, this is a layer as if it was an image in Photoshop. No? So you can create other layers interacting. You can even create water effects, etc., etc. So I'm going to Control C to go back to that position. You can span by pressing in this guy, and you can see that you can anchor. You can pretty much fade or change. For example, if I wanted to change the transparency of this by just clicking here and putting 50, for example, that set of images gets that percentage. So the good thing about this is not that you can change the transparency, of course, you can do that in Photoshop. But the good thing is that you can set, by pressing here, you can set one of these guys, just pretty much, I think it's called like toggle, time toggle, and you can say, yes, be here 100, but you can go back in time and set another one by pressing here. You see another toggle shows up, and here say I want to lower it to 60. So when you actually render this animation, we'll see how we do that afterwards. The transparency or the opacity in this case moves slightly from 100 to 50 and stays there. So we can animate basically all these type of Photoshop effects. To delete them, I select them and delete. We can get a little bit more in depth here in the next class, but just to mention that you can not only change all the animation of the brightness, rotation, scale of these guys, but you can create so many layers and so many type of effects as Photoshop does and animate them in time. So that's pretty much the power of this program. Okay, so I'm going to keep it there and just going to explain how to render this. We want an AVI or a QuickTime type of film. So basically we're going to go here to render queue, and in composition we're going to press and say add to render queue. Immediately this shows up, and we have to change just two things. One, here, output module, we press, we're going to say QuickTime, and in format options we're going to go in video codec, we're going to go to MPEG for video and say OK. If you want audio, because you can insert as a layer not only images back in the time, in the time frame that we were working before, you can also set sound. So I'll explain that in the next class. You will press here, so you will get that audio. I don't have any audio, so I won't press it. I'll say OK. Immediately this changes, and now I'm going to say change the second thing, which is here, and basically where do I want to save this. I'm going to say in the desktop. Save. Okay, this is set. Only thing you need to make sure, if we go back to save it, is that this bar, not the first one but the second one, you see it moves. I press and drag it around, has to be also set. This is pretty much what is going to be rendered. So we have to press shift and snap it to the end. If we had a longer animation, we'll have to snap it to the end of that animation. Okay, so that's going to be render this bar. So it's good. Now we're going to go render queue and press render. And you see it goes very fast because it's not very complicated, but as long as the moment you have a more complex situation, the more time it's going to take, and the more complex, more difficult for your computer to handle. So I'm going to go and check what I have done. Eventually I have saved it. Here is MOV type of film. I'm going to play it. There we go. This is our film. Okay, so I hope you like this, and we can get a little more in detail with After Effects in the future. Okay, I'll stop it there, and hope to see your